And you brought us now to the end of this particular proceeding. They will say it is more time than any time in history, but we will say that history has been long underserving its citizens.
Yes.
And we humbly thank you for giving this family the strength to stand where other families didn't even get a court date.
Yes.
We remember
Yes.
Eric Garner today.
Yes.
We remember Michael Brown.
Yes.
We remember Jacob Blake,
Yes.
who is still with us. We remember Tamir Rice on his birthday. 19 years old would have been today. We remember Breonna Taylor.
Yes.
They never got a court date. We did get a court date, a conviction, and some time.
Amen.
Some will say that's progress. I will say, as Malcolm X said, if you have a knife in my back 6 inches, to take out 4 inches is progress, but I still have 2 inches of knife in my back. The knife is still in our back as long as these unresolved cases are there. And the Floyd family, and those of us in the civil rights community, the activist community, will not stop until justice becomes a matter of federal law and no longer a news story, but the story that we know will follow. Touch that U.S. Senate to see that they must make law so that we will not have little children like George's daughter had to give a judge's statement about the value of a land, but they understand that all of your children matter. Yes, Black lives matter, but you made us all. And we'll be careful to be loyal, and we'll be careful to live up to the calling you placed on the lives of those that serve, and careful
that we need all of you. We need the media, we need the activists, because the second we turn around and leave, we have to go back and ask ourselves, how do we get more justice for George Floyd? How do we get justice for Dante Wright? How do we get justice for Winston Smith? How do we get justice for the many families here who are regularly fought for on behalf by people like Tashira Garraway and her group, Nakima Levy Armstrong and her group? And without all of you, we don't have the energy for that fight right here. We need you all to keep turning out, and we appreciate it because it's allowed the Floyd family to get the most historic justice we've ever seen, but it's not enough.
Amen.
Thank you.
Not enough.
Don't forget Dalal Eid.
Dalal Eid.
Dalal Eid. And as we get ready to bring up the Floyd family, I would be remiss if Brandon, as we heard the sentence, leaned in and whispered in my ear. I got a text from Breonna Taylor's mother congratulating us on getting some justice, the justice that she never got. That's right. And I have to tell you, Reverend Al, as Derek Chauvin's mother was standing up there making her comments, I thought of Tamika Palmer, Breonna Taylor's mother. And so it's not enough until we get justice for all of our people who have been killed unjustly. I think Breonna Taylor's with us. Right now, we're going to have you hear from some of the Floyd family members. You've come to know him. He has been speaking at the U.S. Congress, to the United Nations and everywhere, saying that we demand justice for my big brother, George Floyd. He sounds like a politician, Reverend Al. Mr. Philonise Floyd.
Got my vote. Right.
I got a lot of emotions going through my head right now, but I just find it profound that I felt that I begged for justice for my brother, some type of accountability. The treatment that I thought that everybody should receive. It's just life, you know. You can't get that back. We all live together in this world, and we all want to be able to work together in this world. You have good police officers and you have bad ones. The fact that you shouldn't have to sort them out. The community that I grew up in, it was a lot of African-American people. But the fact that Minnesota has a greater amount of Caucasian people, I still think that everybody should be the same. Everybody should be neutral. Everybody should want to make a difference and make sure that people, when they come to Minnesota, they don't think about George Floyd. They should be able to think about how great Minnesota is. Right. Not thinking about Philando Castile, you know, his mother is still fighting. Yes. Thinking about Dante Wright. Yes. Many families I had to console. You think about Anthony McClain. He was killed. All of these people were shot in the back, most of them. Yeah. The fact that I'm here and I'm still standing, and over a year later, I'm still speaking and I'm speaking out. Times are hard. Right. I have a family, we wake up every day and we don't see my brother. Right. Empty seats all around the house he would have been in. The fact that Gianna would grow up knowing that her father had made a difference in the world, but the fact that she cannot have a sweet 16, she cannot have him walk her down the aisle. She would not be able to have prom with the daddy dance. This is not something realistic. This is something, it's like a dream, but we all need to stand up for what is right.
All right.
All these activists and all these advocates, I thank you all. Definitely, I thank you all. Because if you all didn't speak out, we wouldn't have had a lot of help. But the fact that the world, you got to think about Japan. You have to think about Germany. You have to think United Nations. You have to think Italy. I have so many different people I spoke to, Africa, all around the world, and they all think the same way. Your skin color should not define who you are.
Amen.
It should never be a weapon. And the fact that we're here standing today, still breathing, we're still fighting. Reverend Al always said, keep fighting.
Keep fighting.
And that's something I can't stop. I want to tell Miss Carr, I love you.
Yeah.
I know it's hard. That's Eric Garner's mom. I want to tell Breonna Taylor, mom, I love you. Pamela Turner, I know it's hard. I want to tell Pamela Turner, that's Baytown, Texas.
Yeah.
This is not okay. Her daughter is walking around, and I know she's in tears every day thinking about her mother. Her mother was killed in point blank range, shot multiple times. So many different people all around the world who didn't even have this type of technology. I just want to reiterate, not just Black Lives Matter, all lives matter. We need to stand up and fight. Can't get comfortable, because when you get comfortable, people forget about you.
Amen.
So the legend will still live on. George is not here, but his spirit lives here. Breonna Taylor is not here, but the spirit still lives here. Eric Garner is not here. Spirit still right here. But the fact that we're here fighting, I want all you all to stand up and fight. Thank you all so much.
And next we're going to have another brother of George who came all the way from New York, Brooklyn, New York. And as we introduce him, it's not lost on us as Attorney Stewart and Attorney Ramanuja and I talk. It's always a journey to justice. Tony told me Laquan McDonough, who was found guilty, his killer, the police officer that killed him, shot him 14 times in the back on video. 16 times in the back on video. And he was convicted of second-degree murder. And he was only sentenced to 6 years. Botham Jones, who in Dallas, Texas, was killed in his own apartment.
Right.
The white policewoman, Amber Geiger, was found guilty of first-degree murder, Reverend Al.
Right.
And she was only sentenced to 10 years. And Justin Miller, what was it, Walter Scott in South Carolina, same conviction, shot in the back on video, convicted 20 years. So each step, each case, we keep making progress. We came too far to stop now. We have to keep going forward. And so that's why all the energy we have in this courtroom, we have to take to Capitol Hill, and we have to join Senator Cory Booker. We have to join Congresswoman Karen Bass, Senator Tim Scott. We got to say, you all, we need meaningful police reform.
That's right.
So we don't have to put up with these injustices. Seem like, Reverend Al, every other week, there's a new hashtag. We can stop this, America. We're at the turning point. Terrence Floyd, Brooklyn, New York.
Let me hear y'all say change.
Change.
Let me hear y'all say change.
Change.
That's right. Just like I heard y'all say change all together, that's how we're going to keep the change going together. Fight. Keep fighting. The way we got here is because of our fight and your fight together. Y'all hit the streets. We thankful for y'all. And we just I'm overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed. Because I'm going to tell you a quick story. I had a dream the other night. I was in a field. I was in a field in the South with my family. And I looked back and I saw a man. I saw a man coming up, walking. And I'm trying to figure out who is that? I look, he gets closer. And all of a sudden I see the hat cocked to the side like this. Anybody that know me know who that is. That's my father. So he got close to me and he gave me a smile and he gave me a hug. I woke up, that dream was so real, I woke up hugging myself. So I knew I was a little leery about the sentencing, but because of that, I knew that my father was saying, "You good? He's good. Keep doing what you're doing for me, for your brother, for your name, because we Floyd strong, and we're gonna stay strong." Thank you.
Right. Well said. Thank you, Terrence. Next, we will hear from the nephew of George Floyd, who's like a brother, like a son in many regards to him, Brandon Williams.
Yeah.
It's funny that we got justice, but not enough justice. You know, I remember standing here the first day of trial in this very same spot, and we were very optimistic and unsure of what was going to happen. After seeing that video, we should have been 100% sure that we would be at a guilty conviction with a maximum sentence. When you think about George being murdered in cold blood with a knee on his neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds, execution style in broad daylight, 22 and a half years is not enough. We were served a life sentence. We can't get George back. Gianna can't hug George again. He'll be able to hug his family possibly and see his family again. We can't get George back. So in retrospect, I feel that he should have received a life sentence as well. What kind of message are you sending to our country? What kind of message are you sending to the younger kids like Gianna? That you can kill a man in cold blood and get a slap on the wrist? That's like a slap in the face to all of us standing up here. And everybody around the world who feel what we feel and saw that video. So I won't celebrate this. I won't celebrate it at all. But I will celebrate a guilty conviction on a police officer that killed a black man, because far too many times we see them kill us and get right away with it. I will celebrate this as a victory for Ms. Tamika Palmer, who I'm very, very close with. I hope that Attorney Daniel Cameron out in Kentucky can follow Keith Ellison's lead and charge the cops who killed Breonna Taylor. So there are some positive things to take from this. But this 22 and a half years just isn't one for me. Thank you.
All right, Brandon. From the heart, Brandon. And we have his brother, his baby brother, Rodney Floyd from Houston, Texas, 3rd Ward.
Hey, how y'all doing? You know, I would like to thank the protesters first, the local protesters. And in this city, I would like to thank all the protesters that came out across the country to this city and standing up in their cities as well, demanding change. We all have one thing in common. We want change for my brother's case. This right here is this 22-year sentence they gave this man. It's a slap on the wrist. We serving a life sentence for not having him in our life. And that hurts me to death. And looking at his daughter, beautiful daughter, Gianna, in her video, saying the first video, my dad changed the world. He did change the world. But at the end result, he gets a slap on the wrist. My nephew just said, 22 years from killing her dad, that she can't take her to school. He can't eat lunch with her. He can't conversate with her. I know with my daughter, I love my daughter. Hugs her, we talk, that's my little best friend. And I hate to see that he cannot have that, she can't have that connection with her father. Those great conversations, those wonderful phone calls, lighting up her face, you know. And around the world, black, white, brown, we all need to come together, take our butts to the Senate, stand out there and demand this George Floyd Act be passed. And also, as well as the act being passed, we need to stand up, put pressure on this Senate. Right. You know, and I was thinking last night, guys, honestly, we heard Obama say this plenty of times, get out and vote. We hear so many folks say get out and vote. Everybody got out and voted, marched in these streets, and we got change. We got our first black president. A lot of people came together like they did now, my brother's death, and we got this. But guess what, people? We need to take that same energy and bring that back to that Senate and demand them pass that bill. Amen. Because as we seen Trump numerous times stand up, fussing on camera numerous times, countless times, because he did not have the power that we thought he had to get something done. He have to call on the Senate. And we need to get out there, understand that message. Go to the Senate, put pressure on the Senate, and get these bills and laws passed for all of us. Amen. Can stand on with this American flag as one. And we, as black people, need to know this American flag represents us, because we feel it don't.
All right. Thank you, Rodney. And as we bring his cousin, Sharita, please understand, this is only one step in getting accountability in the criminal level. The federal charges are still pending. So I do believe that when Philonise and Terrence and Rodney say the maximum, it is still attainable to get maximum accountability for George Floyd. 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 Now you will hear from his cousin, Sharita Tate.
Come on, Sharita.
Hello, everybody. I won't spend a whole lot of time sort of reiterating what my family has already said. I think they have spoke very eloquently about how we dealt with this last year and our thought processes as it relates to the amount of time that Derek Chauvin was given. Truth be told, I don't think any sentence would be enough, because what truly would be justice would be for us to be able to have George back. But with that being said, I'd just like to take this time to thank the countless number of people that have been supportive of us since the very beginning. I remember when we first came here and we were talking about, the sentence and the trial and what potentially the outcome would be. And as we sat through the trial and watched the murder over and over again and came back with the 3 convictions, then we all waited for this day. I will have to say that we didn't get what we wanted. We definitely wanted to see the maximum penalty, but however, as they've already stated, we do have the federal ahead of us, and we are hoping that we can get some real accountability with him getting a life sentence. And lastly, I just want to speak on the Policing Act. We've had it partially, it's before the Senate, and I would just say, echo what everyone else has said. We need this passed immediately. We need to really have some true accountability across the board. Thank you.
And finally, before we take a few of your questions, we have his cousin Tara Brown from Houston, Texas.
Well, I just want to say, my family has spoken a lot about everything that we've gone through since we started this journey. And I will tell you, it definitely has been a journey for us. And as a family, we decided that we were committed to 2 things. For sure, we wanted to make sure that we got some measure of justice for George and for the countless other families who have lost loved ones in the way that we did. And the other thing is that we were committed to making sure that we force the change that we want to see and create legacy that will live on forever. Just want to say thank you to everybody who has supported us throughout this journey, especially the protesters and the activists who have been nonstop and relentless, and they've helped us get to this point. And the other thing is, we want to say that this bill needs to get passed. And I want to make sure that we don't stop just with this bill, but it's important that you hold your state elected officials accountable to that as well. We are also looking at the local level where they're making change. Even in our city where we're from in Houston, there has been some changes already. Our mayor, Sylvester Turner, has banned chokehold, and we have qualified immunity is on the table. So we are keeping active, and we want to make sure that you stay in the fight. Please keep fighting. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. And finally, our national leader, Reverend Al Sharpton.
We're going to open up the questions for the family and all of us. Let me say this so you're clear. If there is conviction in the federal trial and he is convicted and the other three, that federal time can run after the 22 and a half years.
Amen.
It does not have to run concurrent, which is why we're saying that we still want full justice. Secondly, when we talk about the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, we know the difference, Senate, between two slices of bread and a sandwich. A sandwich has meat between the two slices of bread. Don't come down with a compromise that is two slices of bread with no meat in the middle. Don't put George Floyd's name, a strong man, on a weak bill. Make sure that you talk to those in the family and those of us involved in the struggle before you make any compromise. The difference between a compromise and a sellout is in the eye of the appraiser.
Wow.
And we will be part of the appraiser. Questions?
For the family, I have a question with regard to the family, and I'd like to pose a question to one of the family members, whomever would like to answer it.
What's the question?
During the news conference in last June, Attorney General Ellison issued a clarion call to the arts and entertainment community to take the mantle in seeking justice. Any one of the family members can answer why that might be important to them or why it may not.
Why to get artists and entertainers involved. Philonis will attempt to answer your question, but we want to invite other families who are here who have lost loved ones due to police brutality to also come forward. Mr. Floyd, can you answer that question? All right. We may answer that question on the side for you. Okay.
About the case, sir.
Okay. Question about the case. And Attorney Starnes, where are the other families?
Today in court, Derek Chauvin offered condolences to the family. I was wondering what you thought about that. And also Derek Chauvin's mother continued to say that her son was innocent and that people did not know her son like the family did. And I was wondering what you thought about those comments. The condolences from Derek Chauvin and the mother saying that her son was innocent and people did not know Derek Chauvin like her family did.
All right. I just thought about it as the same thing with my brother. People didn't know who my brother was. They labeled him. The trial was all about my brother. Instead, it should have been about Mr. Chauvin. So the things that she spoke about, I understand that because that's her son. Same way she spoke up for her son, I spoke up for my brother. So we all love our loved ones, but the fact that I will never see my brother again is worse because she still will have the opportunity to see her son in the cell anytime she wants to.
That's right. Let me say something about that with Philonis. When I heard his mother speak, and I respect any mother stand up for their son, but it reminded me, and I said it in the eulogy right here, that George called for his mother. And the one that seemed not to understand the bond between a mother and son, when a son would call for his mother that was no longer alive, was not the Floyd family, it was her son, Derek. Because that did not make him stop when he heard a man call for his mother. I respect his mother. He did not respect George calling for his mother.
Thank you, Rev. We want to acknowledge Bishop Hardin, who was over the Salvation Army where George worked, and George did so much great. So let's acknowledge and give him a round of applause for the great work they do. Now we're going to turn it over to a lady who needs no introduction here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. She's a lawyer, she's an activist, and she's a freedom fighter. Y'all give it up for my sister, Nakima. And she's going to introduce some other families. Please, Queen.
Good afternoon. It's our honor to stand here with the family of George Floyd and the lawyers who continue to represent this family in their continued pursuit of justice. This is one step towards progress, but this is not justice, and this is not full accountability as the family has asked for. I'm Nakima Levy Armstrong. I'm a civil rights attorney based here in Minneapolis, and I'm standing next to Tashira Garraway, who is part of Family Supporting Families Against Police Violence, Jaylani Hussein from CARE Minnesota, and Michelle Gross from Communities United Against Police Brutality. And we are all here as people who stand on the front lines with the folks who are here from the Twin Cities who hold it down time and time again. We got to give it up for the activists and the organizers who face rubber bullets, tear gas, arrests, and demonization for standing up for George Floyd and all stolen lives. This incident today of Derek Chauvin being sentenced is something that we've been waiting for a long time. The sad part about his sentence is that we know that Black men often receive more time for doing less than what Derek Chauvin did. There are plenty of Black men and Latino men in prison for nonviolent drug offenses. But here we have a veteran officer who was literally able to lynch someone in broad daylight in the presence of children and other witnesses and essentially get a proverbial slap on the wrist. That is not acceptable. Judge Cahill should have held him accountable to the fullest extent of the law. It is not enough that he has received the most time from compared to other police officers who have killed people. This is a new day. It's not based on what they did in the past when they could lynch us and get away with it, when they could brutalize us and get away with it, when they could kill people and get away with it. Just because it's the most time does not mean that it is enough time. So we will continue to stand up and fight alongside this family and everyone else who cares about justice and demanding that the federal government now step in and hold their children and those other police officers
We need the vaccine of justice in this country. We need the vaccine of justice in this country against the police that are killing us, against the economic justice that's happening in our neighborhoods. We demand justice, and we say every single day that we will demand justice by any means necessary. And I'd like to bring up Michelle Gross from Communities United Against Police Brutality.
All right, Michelle.
Thank you. My name is Michelle Gross, MICHELLEGROSS, and I am one of the founders and currently the president of the organization Communities United Against Police Brutality. To say that we are disappointed in this sentence is an understatement. There were so many aggravating factors and virtually no mitigating factors. The judge should have sentenced Mr. Chauvin to the fullest extent of the law. He needed to send a message, and his message was lukewarm at best. As the sentence is a presumptive sentence, it even means that Derek Chauvin will only serve 2/3 of that sentence. It's simply not enough. But more than that, we have had in this state over 270 people killed at the hands of police in the state of Minnesota since the year 2000. Derek Chauvin is only one of 2 officers who was ever convicted and sentenced of anything. He's one of only 4 officers who has been prosecuted. In other words, we have a very, very, very long way to go to even pretend that we are going to give justice. We need to reopen all of the cases of wrongful deaths in this state at the hands of law enforcement. All of those cases need to be reopened, need to get a legitimate investigation, not a phony cover-up as the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension and these other police agencies have often done. We need to have an independent investigation and an independent prosecution. And until we have those things, we have no justice for these stolen lives. But beyond that, we need to change the conditions that led to these deaths in the first place. We need to change those conditions. We can honestly say that in the state of Minnesota and in the city of Minneapolis, we have not had one meaningful change that has occurred since the death of George Floyd that would prevent it from happening again. That is simply unacceptable. It means that we will continue to go through this cycle, and families will continue to grieve, and our communities will continue to be traumatized over and over and over again because we refuse to address the underlying problem. This is unacceptable. We are not going to go along with it. We demand change, and we demand it now. Thank you.
Black lives. Black lives. Black lives. Say his name. Say his name. Say his name. Say his name.
Richard Smith.
Say his name. Say his name. Say his name. All right, no doubt, no doubt. We're very disappointed by the verdict today. We believe that he should have. My name is Traren Cruz. I'm lead organizer with BLM Minnesota, TRAHTRNCREWS. We're very disappointed in the verdict today. We feel that we know that Derek Chauvin should have been sentenced to 30 or 40 years. We know in the state of Minnesota, people have been sentenced to 30 or 40 years for nonviolent offenses like selling drugs and things like that. So if we can send people to jail for 30, 40, 50 years for selling drugs or for nonviolent offenses, then Derek Chauvin should go to jail for 30, 40, 50 years for torturing somebody for 10 minutes in front of children in Southside Minneapolis. Also, like some of the speakers said, for this to be the home of where George Floyd happened and no meaningful reform has taken place, like requiring police officers to carry personal professional liability insurance and then qualified immunity, having a database of killer cops. These are some initiatives that could be put in place right now that could prevent another George Floyd from happening. And at the federal level, we don't have a anti-lynching bill yet. Needs to be passed. Since Emmett Till We haven't had the George Floyd Act hasn't been passed. The Eric Garner Act hasn't been passed. So we urge Congress and the Senate and President Biden to make some meaningful legislation around police accountability and economic justice. Thank you.
We have someone that has met with our families for over a year and a half now, almost 2 years, hearing from our stories, hearing from our pain, hearing from everything that we have gone through with losing the people that we love. And he sat down and heard from us from over a period of time and wrote up legislation on behalf of our families that we are now fighting for. And we will call forward John McCollum.
Hello, my name is Jonathan McClellan. I'm president of the Minnesota Justice Coalition. We are part of a collective of organizations that work with the families and community to draft and advance legislation and other policy initiatives at the state capitol here in St. Paul and in Washington, D.C. I want to give my deepest condolences to the families who should not have to be here and whose lives have been changed forever. It has been 65 days since the Derek Chauvin, a former Minneapolis police officer, was found guilty of second and third degree murder and second degree manslaughter. Chauvin, who has never expressed remorse for George Floyd's death, even after the verdict was reached on April 20th, 2021. Derek Chauvin violated the public trust and showed a blatant disregard for human life. The results of his brutality have caused immense damage to our community, primarily of color. Further, this incident has sparked outrage around the world. We welcome the sentence of 22 and a half years, but feel it did not reach far enough. Derek Chauvin should be serving life without the possibility of parole. We would have not had this verdict had the people not hit the streets demanding justice. If there wasn't the outpouring of grief from the world, if there wasn't a brave young girl who recorded the viral video of George Floyd's death, I ask myself, is this what it takes to get justice for a person of color? Is this really justice? Sure, we have a guilty verdict. Sure, we have a settlement. But will things actually change, not just for the present, but our future? This conviction is a drop in the bucket of what the criminal justice system owes our community. Sadly, this will be only the second time in modern Minnesota history that an officer has been sent to prison for murdering a human being on the job. Absent any substantive change in legislative policy, has anything really changed? How long before we're right back here fighting for the justice for another victim of police? We know their blueprint: murder, lies, stall, attack the reputation of the victim, cover up, and repeat. We are the state that has failed to correct the wrongs of the past and the wounds it has inflicted on communities of color through state-sanctioned violence. We must continue to carry this fight into the legislature and Congress. We must change and dismantle the systems that allow and have allowed the Derek Chauvins to thrive behind the coded slogan of protect and serve. We demand transparency, accountability, and justice for all stolen lives, even the ones not caught on camera. Our greatest failure is to do nothing knowing what we know. We must wrap our arms around these families. This conviction and sentencing has a special impact on these families who are still fighting for justice for their loved one and can only dream of a trial, let alone a sentencing of a killer. So while we fight for change in the legislature and in Congress with policy, we ask that you not forget what was revealed behind the veil. We ask that you not forget the pain of these families. We ask that you not forget our humanity. Thank you.
I'm Bishop Harding Smith, a friend of George Floyd. And, history, when we look at history, history is recorded event of the past. His story. But have you heard our story? Listen! We as a people have been struggling for over 400 years. You hear our cries, but do you feel our pain? 50 years from now, this family will still be enduring the pain and suffering of losing a loved one. America, we are at a crossroads. We are here today to make a decision on where we go.
Right.
We needed a strong verdict. This country, this nation has a long history with racism. We need to start looking deep within ourselves as a nation what direction we choose to go. Because we as a people will always keep fighting. We are not going to sit down or lay down. We're going to continue to fight for our rights. Today, I wish that we had a 40-year sentence. I wish that Chauvin was also charged with hate crimes. But that didn't happen. That did not happen, and we are really disappointed. But we also have a trial coming up in 2022 of Alexander Kane, of Tutal, of Lane. And we need to let our voices be heard. We need to be out here. Yes, son. I thank you all.
Woo. Minnesota, Mississippi.
What's your name?
That's coming. Good evening. My name is Deborah Watts, the co-founder of the Emmett Till Legacy Foundation and a cousin of Emmett Till. Our great-grandfathers were brothers. And so they have a half smile today because we're not quite done. Minnesota, Mississippi. Mississippi. Repeat after me. Mississippi.
Mississippi.
The past is not past until justice is served.
Yes.
Because as we stand here, we cannot ignore the past because 66 years ago, Emmett Till was murdered in Money, Mississippi. The murderers were acquitted, and there's one last living accomplice that has never been charged.
Mississippi.
Her name is Carolyn Bryant Donham. Carolyn Bryant Donham. Don't forget that. Emmett's case is in the hands of the Mississippi DA, Dwayne Richardson. Dwayne Richardson. Also, it is in the hands of the Federal Department of Justice as well. But I stand here today because I don't want these families to have the same 66-year journey that we have right now. So my sympathy, my condolences go out to the Floyd family and all of these families that are behind me. We need justice. If you want to talk about reconciliation, spell JUSTICE to me and to all of us.
Yes.
Okay? So the past is not past until justice is served. I am not here for white guilt. I am not here for listening to Kumbaya. I'm here to make a difference. And these families, through their pain and their passion and their purposes, are not activists. None of us are activists, but we are activated. Activated to move forward towards justice. So just remember, Emmett Till, if you don't hear the parallels or see the parallels, then there's some blindness happening. But some of the same things that happen in Mississippi, they just wear different uniforms, right? Different uniforms. So the same cultural biases and racism and white supremacy is just by another name, new narrative. So Emmett Till, justice still needs to be served. HR 55, which is the anti-lynching bill, HF 2586 is the Emmett Lewis Till Victims Recovery Program to give support to these families because they're beyond some of the statute of limitation for help and support. So I just say thank you for your attention. Thank you for these families being activated and speaking your truths. So the past is not past until justice is served. Thank you. Thank you.
We will now have the significant other of George Floyd, Courtney Ross, and also DJ with Twin Cities Coalition Justice for Jamal. All right, get it.
Yeah, Courtney, we got your back.
I hear my people out there. Hi, Joey. My name is Courtney Ross. I'm the fiance of George Floyd. On earth and in heaven, he will always be mine. He will always be the love of my life. I want to say one thing today. I want to speak to the people of Minneapolis. This is my home. I'm 612 for life. This is where I plan to be forever. I'm not calling for an evening of peace, but I am calling for an evening of non-violence. If you are using Floyd's name in any way to promote that, that is not what he was about. If you knew him, he was about peace, love, inclusiveness, and helping people. If he saw anything going on that caused violence or was hurting someone, he would take his 6 feet long arms out and try and stop them and then pray with them to make sure that they could go on with a better day and not act out in the devil's way. So again, I pray, Minneapolis, that we have a non-violent evening. You can still fight. Come with us. Come with DJ. Come with families supporting families against police violence. Come join us anytime. Get your screams out. Get your anger out in that way. And visit the Capitol. Get your anger out in that way too, people. I'm going to introduce a man that means so much to me, who has been boots on the ground since this happened, who has stood in Floyd's name and has made changes. And without him and all the people that you know I'm speaking to today, this verdict wouldn't even happen today. So thank y'all. DJ,
DJ, nephew DJ.
My name is DJ Hooker. I help organize with TCC for J. I'm going to say this is an unfortunate day. It's a day that shows that white tears still outweigh justice. It's a day where the government continues to reaffirm white supremacy. People can go to jail for selling drugs in the state where it's for 30 to 40 years. In other states where it's legal, and he got 22 and a half years. We have not seen any change on the local level with the city council giving more money to these killer cops. We haven't seen any change at the state level with the Senate playing games all session and continuing to play games during this special session. And at the federal level, where instead of prioritizing stopping the genocide that's happening here in America to Black and Native bodies, they'd rather help fund another genocide around the world against the Palestinians. I have a question for y'all today. What does change look like? Does the law does that look like change?
Listen!
Does change look like Dante Wright? Does change look like Winston Smith?
Listen!
Is that what justice is about?
No.
I expect people to stay out in these streets and to stay activated, and we still got 3 more to go, and we still should turn this verdict over, and we should get more years. So, all power to the people.
We got your back, DJ. We have a few more speakers, and then we will conclude this press conference. We will now call up Donnie Williams, the grandfather of Brian Quinones.
All right, Johnny.
All right, Johnny.
Brian Quinones married my granddaughter, Ashley. And in September 7th of 2019, he was murdered by Richfield and Edina police. This is not a Minneapolis issue.
Listen!
Derek Chauvin was a Minneapolis cop. These other 3 guys are Minneapolis cops. This happens outside of Minneapolis. This happens in Richfield and Edina. This happens in Brooklyn Center and Brooklyn Park
It happens in Eagan. It happens in Bloomington. The Department of Justice is here to investigate the MPD. The MPD is under the sculpture of Hennepin County, which therefore should be investigated as well.
Yeah, that part.
Who files charges when you get in trouble and who doesn't file charges against police? Mike Freeman, who's the Hennepin County District Attorney. I hope the DOJ does the right thing, but they need to take this scope and practices and patterns and whatever investigation they have and expand it outside of Minneapolis. Yes. Go to St. Paul. Most dangerous police department in the state. Go to the BCA. Yes. Go to these people that cover this crap up and protect their brethren with laws on the books. We try to get things changed. Qualified immunity is a freaking joke. Unless you're a cop. Gives you impunity, gives you what you can do because you know your back is covered. Nobody else has it. Brian Quinones was killed before George Floyd. I marched the streets for a year plus screaming George Floyd's name. 22 and a half years is a freaking joke. We all agree, we know it. He deserved more. This kid deserves something. That kid deserves something. Kobe Heisler deserves something. And every time someone else gets killed, these kids move down a list. Bullshit. Yeah, I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. All right? The list grows and gets new names added to it. I'm going to tell you, the new names are important, but this kid's more important. And I don't want anybody to ever forget this kid. Hey, I don't want anybody to forget Travis Jordan or Kobe Heisler or Philando Castile or Jamar Clark. They're on the list. Yes. They're not fresh in your news or in your face, but they're just as important. And to some of us, they're more important. Thank you. Thank you.
We will now have the friend of Travis Jordan. Paul.
Hi, I'm Paul Johnson, friend of Travis Jordan, who was also my roommate and living with me, who was killed on November 9th, 2018, within 3 minutes and 35 seconds of being called for a wellness check. People of color are 16 times, that's 1/6 times more likely to be hurt or murdered on a wellness check than white folks. That's 16 times. We already know that they're 2.5 times more likely to be killed than white people in general. In general, yet they can have a bad day and that turns into 16 times that they become what America has deemed the super predator. We must stop this sort of name calling. It's ridiculous and absolutely uncalled for. Travis Jordan was having a bad day. He deserved to get help, and our city is failing people constantly. Our mayor is inept and is absentee at best. Since his seat is so empty all the time from doing it correctly, I decided to take this community and fill it this November. Paul Johnson will be running for mayor, is running for mayor, and we are taking these families and our voices right to the seat. We will not be forgotten. We have been quieted. We have been swept under the rug to try to go on to the next person and the next person, trying to make everyone appear as though it was in a vacuum. How many people have to die to understand that this is a problem and these are not singular events? Okay? We are coming. We are making the change. We are not urging these people to change anymore, as some have stated. We're not urging you anymore. We are coming and we are making these changes. Gentlemen, if you're in your seats and you're comfortable now, get ready. You're leaving. Bye. All power to the people.
We will have one last speaker, and then we will conclude this press conference. We will have the father of Kobe Heisler, Jason Heisler. Thank you.
My name is Jason Heisler, the father of Kobe Heisler, who was killed during a mental health crisis. He was a 21-year-old autistic man in Brooklyn Center on August 31st, 2019. It's almost been 2 years. Me and these families today met with Merrick Garland, Attorney General Merrick Garland's Department of Justice today, because they're in town to conduct a patterns and practice investigation of the Minneapolis police. And it's not the first time these police have been investigated. This investigation is over. They have a culture of racism, a culture of excessive force, and a culture of murder. And they kill black people, and they kill people who are disabled. They killed 500 people in the last 20 years, and over 50% of them were disabled. My son was an autistic black man, and I met with these families today, and a lot of it has been covered already, but I want to say, if they're investigating the Minneapolis police, I want to tell you that the culture of excessive force and murder doesn't end at 51st Avenue North or 62nd South. These other cities have more racists on their police force. So I want them to conduct a pattern and practices investigation of all 4 counties. I want them to have independent investigators for all of these families' cases. The BCA and Mike Freeman are in bed with the police, and they're never going to have an independent investigation of their buddies who they need to prosecute criminals. I wish Derek Chauvin would go to jail forever. And he's such a criminal that he probably would. He will. This ain't the only crime he's committed. He claims Florida residents making $100,000 a year. He's a criminal and a murderer. Sorry about that. And so I want an independent investigator. We come out here every night and people make a lot of call outs to tell people to come down. But I only want to call out one person, and it's my buddy Keith Ellison. He needs to get down here and investigate every time the police kill someone, because we can't trust Mike Freeman, and the BCA just reiterates lies. Open all these cases. Thank you.
We will conclude the press conference for today. Do any of you guys have any questions for any of us? Thank you for hearing from all of our families, the people that support us. Thank you for being here today. We will be continuing on. We will be marching in the streets. The families that have lost loved ones at the hands of police, as well as some of our strong supporters, will be marching right after this. And then we also have action this evening at 9 p.m. We will also be marching down in the streets as well. Thank you.
Can you end us the way you usually do?
Okay, Tashira. Yeah, girl. Go, Tashira. Come on. Thanks, girl.
I would just like to say that our families are just going through so much right now, sitting here watching these people slightly give George Floyd justice, and knowing that this is something that we're hoping and pleading for. We're pleading and crying out
that hopefully one day our loved ones will be valued enough to receive the same amount of justice. But until then, we will not be quiet, and we will stand up with our lives on the line. We will stand up even when they try to silence us, even when they try to shut us out, even when they try to cover up our murders. We will continue on because we don't have a choice. We don't have a choice. I don't have a choice because I have a 15-year-old son named Justin Jr. Kobe Heisler's father doesn't have a choice. Brian Quinones' family doesn't have a choice. And all the rest of these families that are out here do not have a choice but to continue on. So even though we may get scared or afraid or discouraged at times, we don't have a choice but to keep fighting. Even though we may not even be close to having a trial, we don't have a choice but to keep fighting because there is a life that deserves to live and did not deserve to die like that. None of them. And we will be fighting that these officers be held accountable just like Derek Chauvin. We have a duty to fight for our freedom. We have a duty to fight for our freedom. We have a duty to win. We have a duty to win. We must love and support one another. We must love and support one another. We have nothing to lose but our chains. We have nothing to lose but our chains. We have a duty to fight for our freedom. We have a duty to fight for our freedom. We have a duty to win. We have a duty to win. We must love and support one another. We must love and support one another. We have nothing to lose but our chains. 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 All power to the people. All power to the people. Thank you. It's being right now. They're trying to cover it up, and we're trying to stop them from covering it up. So we got to put the pressure on the BCA, on the governor who oversees the BCA. We got to keep putting the pressure on these people because they're actively trying to cover up a murder in our faces. Yes, we had a meeting. All of us, our coalition, earlier this week. We had a meeting, and we are asking for the DOJ to step into this investigation because we know that the BCA is not going to do the right thing in investigating. We also truly know in our hearts that there were cameras out there that day, that there's no way in Uptown that there was just no business cameras or anything that caught this footage. So they're down to the point where they're no longer, with George Floyd, it went live and spread everywhere. So now they're just to the point, well, we're just going to tell them that there was no videos, there was nothing, and then just cover it up, and everybody just needs to move on. So, but we are trying to fight for the DOJ to go into that case and investigate. And to fire Ramona Doman as well. That's right. Thank you. My reaction to the sentencing today is that we got we got the crumbs that they always give us, with the sentencing, but this officer did get put away. Now we got many more officers that need to be put away because, like I said earlier, we know that George Floyd was the face of hundreds of murders here in the state of Minnesota, but we also know that just like George Floyd was the face of hundreds of murders, Derek Chauvin is the face of hundreds of killer cops here in the state of Minnesota that are still roaming in our community and serving on our forces. We want the same amount of justice we deserve. Our families deserve the same amount of justice as George Floyd and anyone else. And we will not be quiet until we receive that. Thank you. Y'all ready? Okay, so we're going to get ready to get marching, everybody.
I know all the press is going to join us for the march, too, so we'll see you on the street.
Around the corner.
You keep acting like